Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Part 202 based on novel. So let's start. That was the reason why the White Tiger Duke had a headache. He couldn't possibly relinquish their defensive perimeter along the Mingdo mountain range. Otherwise, if the Sun Moon Empire conquered the Mingdo mountain range once more, the Star Luo Empire would be pushed into an even more backward position. But they couldn't not defend their northern front. Such a long battlefield was extremely unfavorable for the Star Luo Empire. The Do Ling Empire behind them had it a lot better in comparison. They had the Heavenly Soul Empire in front of them for defense, after all. Furthermore, once the Sun Moon Empire had completely overrun the Heavenly Soul Empire, they would undoubtedly have to face Shrek City. Shrek City's strength was an important form of invisible protection for the Do Ling Empire. That was also one of the most important reasons why the Heavenly Sun Doluo decided to relent, because he didn't want to offend Shrek Academy. Hui Yuhao began to contemplate. "Duke, can we come in?" The White Tiger Duke was shocked by his question. The tent curtains were lifted in the next moment. The soldiers outside didn't realize at all as two figures materialized right in front of him. There was only one Hui Yuhao in the tent, but now there were two. The White Tiger Duke glanced at the one on the right, and then the one on the left. He heaved a sigh of admiration. "That is so amazing. Yuhao, did you know what we were all full of admiration for the strength you displayed when you broke out? Seems like you're all grown up now." Hui Yuhao said plainly, "Duke, now is not the time to compliment me. You should think about what you should do. I can report back to the academy once you make a decision so that we can do our best to cooperate with your plans." The White Tiger Duke forced a laugh and said, "I wouldn't be so anxious and worried if there was a good solution. You are very aware of the Sun Moon Empire's fighting strength at the front, and ambushing them with sudden attacks is also very difficult. They are too flexible and mobile, and they can move around very quickly with their soul tools, especially those formidable soul engineer legions of theirs. I want to hear your advice." Hui Yuhao said, "The Sun Moon Empire is ultimately facing the continent's three empires all by themselves. Their military deployment covers a much larger territory after conquering the Heavenly Soul Empire. Our battlefront is long, but in truth, the Sun Moon Empire faces the same situation. The only difference is that their military strength is concentrated along the nation's borders as much as possible, and they are having a comparatively easier time because they have powerful soul tools. This also means that their inner regions are extremely empty." The White Tiger Duke said, "Everyone knows that, but it's no use even if we know that they have this weakness. The Sun Moon Empire have deployed many surveillance soul tools along their borders. We cannot possibly go undiscovered if we mobilize our armies for an attack. They still have many soul tool forts along their borders, and any front can impede us for a period of time sufficient for them to send reinforcements." Hui Yuhao continued, "If we wish to defeat the Sun Moon Empire and achieve victory in this war, then we have to hold back their main forces effectively while gradually weakening them. This is the only way to put them up to their ears in work, and the only way we can execute a war of attrition against them. Just like when you sent large masses of soul masters into the Sun Moon Empire's territory to conduct guerrilla warfare back then." The White Tiger Duke shook his head. "That move is not effective anymore. The Sun Moon Empire have increased their production of aerial surveillance soul tools over the past 2 years, and they have too many eyes in the sky. Our men will be going to their deaths if they attempt to infiltrate again, and we have already tried it. It wasn't effective, and we lost many men. Unless we have extraordinarily talented individuals like you who also possess formidable concealment abilities, nobody can possibly infiltrate the Sun Moon Empire's territory." Hui Yuhao's eyes sparkled when he heard the White Tiger Duke's words. He suddenly clapped his hands and said excitedly, "I have an idea, I have an idea." The White Tiger Duke was momentarily stunned. Hui Yuhao took a few quick steps forward and came beside the Duke. He could naturally feel the White Tiger Duke's aura when he came near, and he couldn't help but think about the scene when he carried him high into the sky. But his emotions rippled for but a moment before he immediately returned to normal. He whispered something beside the White Tiger Duke's ears. The White Tiger Duke's pupils contracted as he listened, and he snapped his head around. Really? Can we really do that? Hui Yuhao nodded forcefully and said, theoretically, we can. The Sun Moon Empire will mobilize all their forces when they restart the war. If we don't take drastic measures, we have no chance of defeating their formidable Soul Engineer legions on the battlefield. We can only threaten them at their very core to have a chance of emerging victorious. The White Tiger Duke was extremely intelligent, and he immediately understood what he had to do when he heard Hui Yuhao's words. All right. Don't worry, Yuhao, you can leave the front lines to me. We will use our lives to prolong the battle even if we can't win so that we can keep them on the battlefield. I will immediately communicate with the Heavenly Soul Empire and the Doling Empire. The three empires will use our combined strength to hold back the Sun Moon Empire's main forces so that we can buy time for you and the Academy. But you have to be quick, because I don't know how long we can hold out. All right, agreed. We're very tired, and we wish to rest here for the night over here. We will hurry back tomorrow morning. The White Tiger Duke got to his feet. He became a little excited after listening to Hui Yuhao's plan. He clapped Hui Yuhao's shoulder heavily and said, excellent, Yuhao. If we can execute your plan successfully, I believe the body Dolor spirit in heaven will definitely bless you with good fortune. Hui Yuhao seemed a little disoriented when the White Tiger Duke patted him on the shoulder with his large hand. He didn't recover completely even after he returned to the tent that he and Tang Wutong were staying in. What's wrong, Yuhao? Tang Wutong asked concernedly. Hui Yuhao shook his head. Tang Wutong asked, is it because of the White Tiger Duke? Hui Yuhao nodded as he forced a laugh and said, for some reason, I feel less and less hostility towards him. Tang Wutong smiled faintly and said, that's a good thing. Just like Juzi said, revenge cannot block out love and kinship. You don't have to think too much. You should pay attention to what's at hand, and you can think about this again after dealing with the Sun Moon Empire. It's not too late to contemplate your relationship with him after beating the Sun Moon Empire back. Furthermore, your mother would be very happy that you're cooperating with the Duke like this if she had been alive. Hui Yuhao's expression became a little dejected when she talked about his mother. Will mother really be happy? I only had one goal when I entered Shrek Academy back then, and that was to take revenge for my mother. But now, I am getting farther and farther away from claiming my revenge. Soft knocking sounds suddenly came from outside. Hui Yuhao swept the area with his spiritual power and knew who was here. Come in, Luoli. Dai Luoli pushed the door open and stepped in. His eyes glowed when he saw Tang Wutong. Even though this wasn't his first time seeing her, this was still the first time that the brothers were interacting alone with Tang Wutong around. Dai Luoli took a few steps forward and said softly, you all right, brother? I've heard that you conflicted with some title Dolor. Tang Wutong was astonished when she heard the way that he addressed Hui Yuhao. She glanced at Dai Luoli, and then at Hui Yuhao. Hui Yuhao hurriedly explained to her, Luoli is the only one who knows my true identity. Luoli, this is your sister-in-law, Tang Wutong. Greetings, sister-in-law. Dai Luoli hurriedly greeted Tang Wutong respectfully. Even though he hadn't heard much about Hui Yuhao over the past 2 years, and they hadn't met, none of that affected his admiration for his older brother. Dai Luoli had heard much from Dai Yuehang and his father about his older brother's legendary stories. Hui Yuhao represented Shrek Academy's elite youths, and he had invented spirits. He was the Spirit Pagoda's honorary master, he had an ultimate martial soul, and he led Shrek Academy's team to achieve glorious results twice in the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Dueling Tournament. He was a legendary figure among the younger generation of Soul Masters, and possibly even across the entire world of Soul Masters. Furthermore, Hui Yuhao had helped the Star Luo Empire's Western Field Army turn the tide of battle on several occasions. Dai Luoli had witnessed those episodes personally. In his mind, his elder brother was his idol. Dai Luoli had been standing guard when Hui Yuhao returned. Hui Yuhao didn't hide his presence when he came out from the White Tiger Duke's tent, and Dai Luoli immediately came to find him after changing guards. He was afraid that his elder brother would be gone once more if he didn't go find him, and he didn't know when they would meet again. 2 years had passed since the last time they separated. Tang Wutong smiled and nodded in Dai Lawley's direction. She was happy for Hui Yuhao, happy that he had at least recognized a relative. "Why are you here, Lawley?" Hui Yuhao asked. Dai Lawley said, "Nothing much, except we haven't seen each other for so long and I have missed you." "Oh, brother, can you get me a spirit some time?" Hui Yuhao grinned and said, "You're still a soul king. It's a little too early for a spirit. I will definitely find a suitable spirit for you when you reach rank 70. It was easy for Hui Yuhao to identify Dai Lawley's cultivation rank with his strength. Dai Lawley had been growing very quickly over the past 2 years, and he should be around rank 55 right now. His cultivation speed was considerably impressive for his age, and it was evident that his potential and talent had been completely activated whether or not his martial soul had truly awakened and mutated. Hui Yuhao would have recommended him to Shrek Academy to study if matters at the front lines hadn't been so pressing. Furthermore, the atmosphere at the front was very suitable for him to cultivate. Dai Lawley's martial soul became a blood tiger after mutating, and it was most suitable for fighting on the battlefield. Dai Lawley would improve quickest through continuous battle and training. Dai Lawley was extremely excited when he heard Hui Yuhao's words. "Don't worry, brother, I will definitely work hard to cultivate." Hui Yuhao inquired about his current cultivation situation, and gave him some pointers. Dai Lawley could tell that it was getting late, and only then did he take his leave. "I'll be going then, brother. Run along. I will be returning to Shrek Academy with your sister-in-law tomorrow morning. I hope you will have become a Soul Emperor by the time I return." "Brother, I will definitely do my best." Dai Lawley was about to turn and leave. However, he suddenly stopped and turned around. He had an awkward expression on his face as he asked, "Brother, you really not going to acknowledge him as your father? In these 2 years, he has aged a lot. If only you were by his side." "Enough." Hui Yuhao growled in displeasure. Dai Lawley was stunned. Hui Yuhao calmed down before continuing, "Run along. I will naturally settle my business with him in the future." After Dai Lawley left, Hui Yuhao rubbed his face with his hands. Tang Wutong stood behind him and massaged his shoulders. "Wutong, I really don't know how to sort out my relationship with him. To be honest, my hatred for him has been decreasing. But am I really not going to avenge my mother?" Hui Yuhao could only share his true thoughts with Tang Wutong. Tang Wutong replied, "Regardless of whether you plan revenge or not, you should sort things out with him sooner or later. However, now is definitely not the right time. To be honest, don't you think that his days are numbered? If the Sun Moon Empire were to launch another attack on the Mingdo mountain range, the Star Luo Empire might not be able to fend them off. Hence, the most pressing matter at hand is to win the battle which is about to unfold." After hearing her words, Hui Yuhao nodded in agreement. "Yes, you're right. There is no family without one's country." After meditating for an entire night, both Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong felt refreshed. Following which, they bade goodbye to the White Tiger Duke before returning to Shrek City. At the Sun Moon Empire's palace. "What? The prince has returned?" Xu Qianran was shocked as he looked at Zhu Zi, who was hugging the prince and tearing up before him. Even though he did not have much feelings for the prince, who was not his own child, he understood the importance of the existence of this prince for the stability of the empire. Having a prince meant there was a successor to the throne. Hence, he was bent on using all possible methods to allow Zhu Zi to recover the prince. Xu Qianran regained his calm and asked, "What happened?" Zhu Zi was shedding tears of joy as she replied, "I have no idea what happened. After checking on the soldiers this morning, I returned to find the prince lying in the bed. He was just having fun by himself. I have no idea who sent him back." The answer contained no useful information at all. Xu Qianran frowned and said, "Previously, those titled Dolor abducted the prince to blackmail me. Why would they return the prince so easily? Could they have done it out of their conscience?" Xu Qianran would never have believed such an idea. He did not believe in the existence of a conscience. In his eyes, interests and benefits governed our universe. Despite being interrogated about the details, Zhu Zi remained very careful with her answers and did not reveal any unnecessary details. She was a smart woman and had fabricated a story along with all the minute details beforehand. She had merely delayed the news by a night. After checking with Zhu Zi, Xu Qianran summoned the guards and interrogated them. There was no doubt that their lives had been turned upside down after they had failed to stop the intruders the other time. Other than random pieces of useless information, they were unable to provide anything useful. After punishing them for their failure the other time, Xu Qianran did not pursue the matter further. He ordered the imperial physician to make sure the prince was all right and stopped all investigations. After all, he was still very trusting of Zhu Zi. In fact, she could be said to be the person who he trusted the most. There was no one else he placed the same amount of trust in. Xu Qianran was even planning to rely on her to conquer the world for him. She had cried her heart out that day when the prince disappeared. Xu Qianran had always felt bad for letting that incident happen. Now that the prince had returned, he felt that asking too many questions would not be appropriate. It seems like those people must have started to panic after seeing our army assemble and have decided to return the prince to us. Do they really think this will stop me from my ambitions of conquering the world? They must be daydreaming. My empress, our plan will remain the same. After we are done with our preparations, you will still be the commander of the 3 armies. Zhu Zi nodded as she hugged her son tightly. She whispered, Your Majesty, I have a small request to make. Go on. Xu Qianran spoke. Zhu Zi hesitated a while before continuing. The prince's disappearance had taken a lot out of me. I can't stop blaming myself for not protecting him properly. This time, because I will be leaving for an extended period of time for the campaign, I wish to bring the prince along with me to prevent a repeat of this incident. After hearing her words, Xu Qianran flew into a rage. What? You want to bring the future leader of our empire onto the battlefield? Zhu Zi, has your ego gone to your head? How dare you raise such a request to me? Zhu Zi collapsed to her knees before Xu Qianran. She did not say anything as tears started to stream down her cheeks. Xu Qianran's heart started to soften as he stood up and walked towards her. I cannot allow you to do this. How can I let the successor to my throne leave the palace? You may rest assured that I will step up the palace security after you leave. I will make sure I get someone to protect the prince and ensure that he does not come to any harm. I guarantee you that all of the above will be done. You know very well that even though the prince is not my own child, I have no chance of having my own child. In the future, every plot of land and drop of water I own will belong to him. Hence, you must put in your best into this campaign. The 3 armies will be placed under your command. When you return victorious, I will bring the prince and welcome you back personally. We will organize the biggest celebration for you when you return. Yes, Your Majesty. There was nothing else Zhu Zi could say. At this instant, little Yunhan, who was sound asleep in Zhu Zi's embrace, woke up and exclaimed, Father. Xu Qianran, who was looking very serious, found his body trembling after hearing what little Yunhan had just said. Regardless of who he was ultimately still human. Being infertile was one of the biggest blows for him in his life. Little Yunhan's words had hit the softest part of his heart, making him feel guilty for making those remarks earlier. Hence, he helped Zhu Zi up from the ground before patting on her shoulder. He said, Spend more time with him during these few days we have. Father! Little Yunhan cried out again. Xu Qianran burst into laughter as he pinched little Yunhan's cheek. Yes, my little prince. You must pray for the safety of your mother and wish for her to return victorious. When Zhu Zi carried Xu Yunhan out of the imperial study, her clothes were already drenched with sweat. Even though Xu Qianran enjoyed being addressed as little Yunhan's father, it was a nightmare for Zhu Zi. This was because she knew little Yunhan was not calling for Xu Qianran. Ever since that little fellow learned how to speak, he had never called Xu Qianran father. Even though this was the first time little Yunhan was calling out openly, Zhu Zi knew that he was actually calling out for Hui Yuhao. Toddlers would never lie. Zhu Zi was really afraid that little Yunhan would give it away. Fortunately, little Yunahan did not say anything other than the word father. After bringing her son back to her room, Juzi let out a sigh of relief. However, she still had a very nervous expression on her face. After shutting the door, she laid her son on her bed as she gradually regained her calm. As she gently stroked little Yunhan's hair, she muttered, "My dear baby, it's really in your nature to be like this. Don't worry. No matter how tough it might be, I will never let you suffer again. It seems like war is inevitable." Elder Xian sighed. Hui Yuhao reported all the events that had occurred on his journey, including the time when he returned little Yunhan to Juzi. Elder Xian did not ask too many questions, nor did he try to reprimand Hui Yuhao. All he did was let out a long sigh. This time round, even though we have managed to recharge and sharpen our capabilities, the Sun Moon Empire has also had the same 2 years to recuperate and recover what they have lost and expended. I can only imagine how devastating the war will be. Besides, as of now, we don't even know where they will strike. This is the largest problem at hand. Yuhao, share your thoughts on this with me. Hui Yuhao replied, the current situation has already become fairly clear. The Sun Moon Empire continues to possess an absolute advantage over us. Their soul tool technology should still remain above our expectations. If I were to hazard a guess, Juzi should still be the commander. From what I understand about her, since she was also a student of teacher Xian, her military talents far exceed her talents as a soul engineer. She is well versed in different military strategies, and will be a difficult opponent. She was the one who drafted the plan to use their widely publicized attack on the Star Luo Empire as a decoy for their main attack on the Heavenly Soul Empire. Now, she possesses even greater strength, and it will be extremely difficult for us if we were to face her directly. Since we can't match their abilities and power, we have no choice but to employ an unorthodox strategy. Based on my calculations, the Sun Moon Empire will definitely place an army on the other side of the Mingdo mountain range to monitor the troops of the Star Luo Empire and prevent them from invading. The bulk of their troops will enter the regions of the Heavenly Soul Empire they have already captured. This would allow them to link up with the troops that have fortified the border and intimidate the rest of the Heavenly Soul Empire. At the same time, they can continue to threaten and deter the troops from the Star Luo Empire. Even though the area where the Star Luo Empire connects with the original land of the Heavenly Soul Empire is fairly treacherous, it is a lot less dangerous than the Mingdo mountain range. Hence, no matter what, the Sun Moon Empire will never give up their advantage. Elder Xian nodded and asked, so what is this unorthodox strategy you were talking about? Hui Yuhao explained, the Sun Moon Empire must have drafted plenty of new soldiers after invading 2/3 of the Heavenly Soul Empire's land. However, the fighting power of these new soldiers is ultimately limited. They will only send their strongest troops to the front line. Hence, this means that the defense of the Sun Moon Empire will be relatively weak. If we can dispatch an elite squad to strike the Sun Moon Empire from their backs, or even perform sabotage operations in Radiant City, the battle at the front lines would become a lot less intense. In fact, there's even a chance that the battle could dissolve. After all, the original 3 nations of the Doluo continent have plenty of resources. If we were to fight a protracted war, there is no reason for us to fear the Sun Moon Empire. And if the Sun Moon Empire were to continue to attack, they would only sink deeper into the regions within the original 3 nations. Their line of battle would only extend, rendering it impossible for them to return to protect their homeland. Elder Xian frowned. Your strategy sounds pretty good. However, it is near impossible for us to dispatch an elite squad to the interior of the Sun Moon Empire. The Sun Moon Empire has enough resources dedicated to surveillance of both the land and sea routes which lead to their land. They would naturally be able to react the moment they detect our troops. I can't think of how we, the Heavenly Soul Empire, the Star Luo Empire, and the Doling Empire, can transport our troops to the interior of the Sun Moon Empire. Hui Yuhao gave a sly smile as he replied, it would naturally be impossible for the original 3 empires. All of their troops have been accounted for by the Sun Moon Empire. Besides, their fighting power is far from sufficient. This elite squad must not only possess immense destructive capabilities and must be extremely flexible and agile, but they must also be able to land their blow with a single attempt, and successfully flee on command. If not, the effect of this strategy would be very limited. Elder Xian replied, "It seems like you already have someone in mind, right?" Hu Yuhao nodded. At this juncture, there was no longer any need for him to withhold the information. "Yes. I am referring to the 3 Soul Engineer Legions which our academy has painstakingly trained. It had taken close to a year to assemble the equipment for these 3 Soul Engineer Legions by tapping into the wealth and support of Shrek City and the 3 empires since Xianziwen gave his suggestion. They had been undergoing intensive training as they learned how to better utilize their equipment and gear. However, Xianziwen, Hu Yuhao and the higher-ups in the Shrek Academy knew well enough that the capabilities of the 3 Soul Engineer Legions were still not on par with the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legions. The 3 Soul Engineer Legions' abilities were all too singular. Out of the 3 legions, only one of them possessed airborne capabilities. Even though the other 2 had their own individual special abilities, their collective fighting power was still a long way from the Sun Moon Empire's legions. Their flaws were all too apparent. Nonetheless, they were the products of the blood and sweat that Shrek Academy had shed for the past 2 years. When Hu Yuhao suggested the deployment of these 3 Soul Engineer Legions, Elder Xian was taken aback. It was simply a very costly and risky investment. It was hard enough to figure out how to send them over to the Sun Moon Empire. Even if they were successfully sent over there, how were they going to survive the battles that would no doubt take place? These 3 Soul Engineer Legions were formed from thousands of Soul Masters. They were essentially the foundation of the entire academy. If they were to all perish on this mission, Shrek Academy would suffer an unprecedented loss. Hu Yuhao naturally knew what Elder Xian was worrying about. When he was on his way back, he had already rehearsed his plan and fine-tuned the details in his head. "Elder Xian, have you forgotten that I have the spectral demiplane? I know we won't be able to bring the thousands of Soul Masters in the Legion into the Sun Moon Empire. However, if it's just me alone, those surveillance soul tools would have no effect on me. They would essentially be blind. And this has already been ascertained from my repeated trips to the Sun Moon Empire." After hearing Hu Yuhao's words, Elder Xian was stunned. However, soon enough, a smile broke out on his face. His excitement translated into a powerful spiritual wave which rippled out from his body and sent Hu Yuhao staggering a few steps backwards. "That's right. Even though his spectral demiplane contains spectral creatures and has limited space, if Hu Yuhao were able to carve out a space to contain the troops, it would actually be possible to transport them to the back of the Sun Moon Empire." Elder Xian found his heart beating faster. Hu Yuhao said, "It's better if we go with fewer people for such operations. Even bringing 3 legions would reduce our flexibility and agility, though my spectral demiplane would more than compensate for it. We will be the most unpredictable unit ever." It would seem as though they had all been equipped with Class 9 flying-type soul tools. Even though it would take time to transport them, the amount of time required would still be very short compared to conventional transportation means. As long as the 3 empires are able to delay the Sun Moon Empire's army, I am confident that we can wreak havoc in the interior of the Sun Moon Empire. In fact, there's a good chance that we can threaten Radiant City. If that happens, we would have achieved something spectacular. After hearing what Hu Yuhao had said, Elder Xian took a deep breath before speaking with conviction. "Let's get everyone in the Sea God's Pavilion together for a conference to discuss this. We must only succeed, and not fail. Yuhao, you must shoulder the responsibility for this operation." Because the plan was suggested by Hu Yuhao, he accepted command without any complaints. An hour later, everyone, including Bei Bei and Zhong Lushuan, gathered together and started the conference. Hu Yuhao explained what he had shared with Elder Xian to the rest who were not present earlier. After hearing his daring tactics, all the elders within the Sea God's Pavilion could not believe their ears. In fact, some of the elders did not even know that Hu Yuhao possessed the spectral demiplane. "Yuhao, how will you ensure that the spectral creatures in your spectral demiplane will not attack our people? Will your restrictive measure be guaranteed to work even when you're not around? You must understand that you will have to fly on the outside when you are transporting the spectral demiplane to the Sun Moon Empire. If anything happens inside the demiplane when you are outside, it might just turn out to be the biggest joke ever." Hu Yuhao replied, can I invite all the elders to enter my spectral demiplane? I believe it will be easier to show you what it actually is instead of trying to explain with words. The elders had all understood how the spectral demiplane would be the key to turning the tables. If they were not able to see it with their own eyes, how would they be comfortable with his plan? After Huiyuhao chanted some incantations, the pitch-black doors opened, and Huiyuhao led the elders into his spectral demiplane. The sky within the spectral demiplane was dark and grey. After entering, they felt a suffocating atmosphere. This pressure was exceptionally obvious to the living. A dark breeze blew across the land as a couple of skeleton soldiers strolled around aimlessly in the distance. After detecting the presence of living creatures, they looked up and started to move towards the group of people from the Shrek Academy. A golden light flickered in Huiyuhao's eyes, and immediately, those skeleton soldiers looked down again and fled. Those who had entered the demiplane before were not surprised by what lay before their eyes. However, those who were entering for the first time were particularly surprised by the absence of life in this grey plot of land. This was a parallel space which was completely outside of the Dolor continent. In their eyes, everything which existed within this space was unheard of. After the golden light faded from Huiyuhao's eyes, he gave a cold stare as an ice-blue light formed behind him. Following which, a tall, burly fellow appeared behind him. "Grandpa." After seeing Huiyuhao, he greeted him enthusiastically. He was none other than Little Bai, the Ice Bear King. Only a few people in the Shrek Academy knew Huiyuhao's true strength. When the rest saw him release the Ice Bear King, many of them silently gasped in surprise. They were all powerful individuals within Shrek Academy, and were definitely more than capable of understanding what that meant for Huiyuhao's abilities. Because the elders had all attained the rank of title Dolor, they could no longer possess spirits. However, this did not interfere with their interest and research into spirits. Conversely, their interest in spirits was a lot stronger than younger people. It was apparent that the fatty that Huiyuhao had just released was one of his spirits. Huiyuhao was the only soul master known to have multiple spirits. The fact that the spirit was able to take on a human form and solidify meant that the fatty was a beast with at least 10,000 years of cultivation before becoming Huiyuhao's spirit. However, most of the people seemed to have ignored how it addressed Huiyuhao as his grandfather. Huiyuhao nodded at Little Bai as he instructed, "Get yourself to come out." "All right." Little Bai agreed as he turned around and released a deafening howl across the expansive plains. Even though this howl was not particularly bright, it was very special. As the sound wave traveled outwards, there were signs of ripples moving across the air. Strangely enough, the ripples did not seem to affect those who were present. It must have cultivated for more than 10,000 years. That was everyone's first reaction. It did not take long before a deep humming sound could be heard from afar. As the ground started to tremble, the group of people could see how the spectral creatures started to move away, as though they were fleeing from their natural predator. Before long, a gigantic figure appeared in their vision. Yes, it was humongous. Truly humongous. This big fellow was over 100 meters tall. Its muscular body was even thicker and broader than some of the smaller mountains. It was covered in a layer of grey fur. When it was running, there was a faint bluish-grey air current that rippled about its body. The most peculiar thing about it was its eyes. There was a powerful blue flame burning in its eye sockets. During its run, some of the flames escaped from the corner of its eyes. Even though the elders of Shrek Academy were all extremely powerful, they still could not help but feel the pressure in the air when they saw this big fellow. "What a big bear!" Zhong Leshuan gasped in shock. This video will end here.